How's it going, guys? This is Marcus Mans with Ozark Aviation's breakdown for the first student solo cross country on the KEOS. Today I want to go over what we will be dealing with when we depart Fayetteville and how we will be communicating during the route. As we can see, we will be traveling through this Class Charlie airspace here. And we can see the Class Charlie airspace in the center starts at the surface level and goes up to 5,300 feet. And on the outside, we start at 2,500 and go up to 5,300 feet. Our route will most likely be flying at about 4,500 feet, which means we will be flying through XNA's airspace. In order to do that, we need to be talking to someone. And so this is why we're going to break this down step by step. So when we get started at Drake on the east side where our hangar is, we're going to get the weather ahead of time, taxi on, have all of our prep done, taxi on out here to the point where Tower, which is located right about here, can see us and we can see them. And then we are going to talk to Tower on 128.0. We're going to let Tower know with our standard breakdown. It's going to be Drake Tower, Skyhawk 12189er, holding short of wings, which is our avionics shop here, requesting flight following to Neosho, and for us that's going to be Kilo Echo Oscar Sierra, and then we're going to give them the weather information that we just picked up on our handheld radio, which is going to be, for our example, Romeo. Drake Tower is going to respond to us, and they're going to say 129er taxi runway 16 via Charlie Alpha, depending on if the winds are favoring 16, or they might say 129er taxi runway 34 via Charlie Bravo, hold short runway 34 at Charlie, letting us know, hey, we got to stop at Charlie, and let either traffic taking off or traffic landing come in before us, or cross runway 34 at Charlie. This has to be read back. So what we're going to say is, we're going to say, if we're going to 16, we're going to say Drake Tower, Skyhawk 129er, runway 16 via Charlie Alpha, or if we got 34, we're going to say Drake Tower, Skyhawk 12189er, runway 34 Charlie Bravo, and then either hold short runway 34 on Charlie or cross runway 34 on Charlie. Now, depending on who you get in the tower, most likely what's going to happen is they're going to give you that clearance, and within about 15 to 20 seconds, they're going to give you your departure procedures. So that's going to be they're going to say Skyhawk 129er Drake Tower, the contact approach on 126.6, squawk 5545. And we're going to read back approach 126.6, 5545, 12189er. And that squawk code can be different every single time. And again, we're going to be ready right here. We're going to have our frequency 126.6 already on standby. One less thing for us to remember on the COM1 radio, and we're going to have a pencil or a pen and paper ready for our squawk code. It's just easier to write it down than to try to fiddle with the transponder initially. If you are beyond that and are able to do it, you can go ahead and put that into the transponder immediately. What's going to happen is we're going to taxi down here, do a run-up, go through our run-up checklist, go to our pre-departure checklist, and then we are going to hit up Tower. We're going to let them know, Drake Tower, Skyhawk 128er, holding short runway 34 at Bravo, ready for departure. Or if we're up here, we're going to say Drake Tower, holding short runway 16, ready for departure. Drake Tower is going to say, if we're down here, 128er, runway 34, clear for takeoff, proceed on course. And we're going to take off, and we're going to just read back, 128er, runway 34, proceed on course, or clear for takeoff, proceed on course. Or if we're on here, they might say 128er, runway 16, clear for takeoff, left turn not approved, meaning we get to turn left on course. And so we're going to take off. So if we've taken off runway 36, somewhere around here, they're going to say 128er, contact approach. If we are taking off runway 16, heading out to the south, and are in our right climbing turn, they're going to say 128er, contact approach. And we're just going to read back 128er, contact approach. What that means is now it's time to switch frequencies. We're going to switch from our Drake Tower frequency of 128.0 to our approach frequency. This approach frequency is going to be who we're talking to that is controlling the airspace in and around XNA Airport. And what that means is once we change frequencies, we're going to contact approach, and all we're going to say is Razorback approach, 12189er, our current altitude, which is probably somewhere between 1,800 and 2,200, just depending on how fast the handoff went, and where we're climbing to. So it's going to be 1289er, 1,800, climbing 4,500. What approach is going to do is they're going to let us know 1289er, radar contact, proceed on course, maintain VFR. That's one option they could give us, and we would just read back 1289er, proceed on course, maintain VFR. And that just means we can fly along our intended route as planned, and we just need to maintain VFR, stay out of the clouds. And another option that they might give us is 12189er, if we're taking off, let's say, runway 34, and there's traffic coming into XNA, they might say 128er, turn right heading 360. And all we're going to do is read back 128er, right 360. And that means we're just going to, instead of flying our intended course on the GPS, is we're going to head to the north and just kind of move out of the way. The Razorback Airspace might give us further instructions. They might say 129er, turn another 10 degrees right or 10 degrees left. And eventually they are going to say 129er, proceed on course, maintain VFR. And we're just going to read that back. Proceed on course, maintain VFR. And that just means our heading restriction is deleted and we can just proceed back direct towards Neosho. Once we get clear of XNA airspace, what's going to happen is they're going to hand us off to the center frequency. And so in our case, we can look for a little box here somewhere that is going to give us the center frequency. Let me see if I can find that here for you. Here up here we have 128.6. And that's the closest box that I've found. Here we have 126.85. So they might give us one of these two frequencies. They might also give us a completely different frequency. We'll just have to listen to whatever frequency they give us. So they might say 128.9er, contact Memphis Center on 128.6. And we're going to read back 128.6, 12189er. And so then we're going to plug 128.6 in the standby frequency versus GPS and switch that over to the active. And then when we check in with Memphis Center, we're going to say Memphis Center, 12189er, 4,500. We're just letting them know we're here, we're on their frequency, and we're at 4,500 feet. Memphis Center is going to say 12189er, radar contact, proceed on course. Or they might say 12189er, no traffic observed between you and Neosho, squawk VFR, flight following terminated. They might also say 12189er, Neosho, 15 miles, 12 o'clock. Advise when you have the airport in sight. And then we will just say 128.9er, Neosho 15 miles, 12 o'clock. We'll advise when we have the airfield in sight. And we'll be putting along, keep going. And then once we see Neosho, we'll let Memphis Center know, 128.9er, field in sight. At that point, then they're going to say 128.9er, no traffic observed between you and Neosho. Squawk VFR, flight following terminated. So we're just going to press the VFR button on our transponder and proceed inbound. Now, if we took off runway 34, most likely we'll be landing runway 10 at Neosho. Now, what that means for us is we're going to kind of set up for a straight-in approach into Neosho. And we're going to call 10 miles out on the Neosho CTAF frequency, 122.8. We're going to say Neosho traffic, Skyhawk 12189er, 10 miles to the south, inbound runway 01, full stop, taxi back. Letting them know, hey, we're going to be landing, we're going to get off the runway, taxi back to the active, and then depart again. And if we don't hear anything on that, and then we're going to end the frequency with Neosho traffic. So we're always sandwiching Neosho traffic between what we're doing and where we're at. And we get 5 miles out, we're going to do the same thing. Neosho traffic, Skyhawk 128.9er, 5 mile final, runway 01, full stop, taxi back. And we're listening for anyone else that's at Neosho traffic, Neosho. And what that means is we're listening to anyone else that's also sandwiching in Neosho. 128.0 is also used by other airports around us. We can see here at Grove Regional, they've got 128.0. And we can take a little closer look here at Grove, and they have runway 3618. So if we hear anyone with 36 or 18, we know they're not at our airport. But if they're using 01 or 19, we know someone is going to be at Neosho. And what happens is it's just a simple communication between the pilot that's in the traffic pattern and us. So if they're in, say, the left downwind or the left downwind for runway 01, and we're coming in on a 5-mile final, we're going to communicate to them and let them know, hey, we are on a 5-mile final. We're coming in straight in, full stop. And what they may do, they're going to do is hopefully extend their downwind and loop in behind us, or if we're still far enough out, they might land in front of us. And it's just a simple communication between us and them. Once we get down to a 3-mile final, we'll make another call. 1289 or Neosho traffic, 1289er, 3-mile final, runway 01, full stop taxi back, Neosho traffic. And then on a 1-mile final, Neosho traffic, 1289er, 1-mile final, runway 01, full stop taxi back, Neosho traffic. We're going to come into Neosho, land the airplane, get off the runway, then we're going to make a call. Neosho traffic, 1289er, clear of the active, back taxiing to the active Neosho traffic. Once we get back to the active here and we're ready for our departure to Monette, what's going to happen is I'm going to quickly reconfigure this here. So we're going to get rid of Fayetteville. We'll keep Neosho on there and we'll add Monette to the route. And we're going to plug it into our GPS on the aircraft. We're going to come up here to the runway and we're going to say Neosho traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, entering runway 01, going to be departing out to the west, or excuse me, to the east, Neosho traffic. What happens then is we're going to take the runway, take off, proceed on the upwind, and then make a right crosswind departure. Once we're about 5 miles from the airport, we're going to make our last call, Neosho traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, clear of the area to the east, last call, Neosho traffic. At this point, we are going to switch over to the Unicom frequency for Monette, and we're going to start making those same 10-mile calls. Neosho traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, 10 miles to the west, inbound, full stop taxi back, runway 36, going to be entering the left downwind Monette. And so what that means is we're coming in and we're getting in to enter Monette. And what we're going to do at Monette, we're going to come in and we're going to set up for a 45-degree entry into the left downwind. So we're going to open up a little bit here to the left and make sure we can enter that left downwind at a 45-degree angle. If for whatever reason we would be using runway 18, we're going to be doing a teardrop entry. What that means is we are going to come in a little bit differently. We're going to cross midfield and we're going to be 1,500 feet above the traffic pattern. And we're going to cross over and then we're going to teardrop into the left downwind, runway 18. So the call for that would be Monette traffic, Skyhawk 12189er. 10 miles to the west, inbound, for a teardrop entry into the left downwind, full stop, Monette. Full stop taxi back. And then, once we come in, 12189, Monette traffic, 12189er, teardrop entry into the left downwind, full stop taxi back, Monette traffic. And then we're going to come in, get it established in the left downwind, so we're going to descend those last 500 feet in a traffic pattern altitude in the left downwind, in our teardrop, and then we're going to make our left downwind call. Monette traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, left downwind, runway 18, full stop, taxi back, Monette. Then we come into our base leg. Monette traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, left base, runway 18, full stop, taxi back, Monette. Then we're going to go to our final leg. Monette traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, final, runway 18, full stop, taxi back, Monette. And we'll continue with this scenario here where we're coming in, landing runway 18, and we're going to come in and then get off of the runway. Let's say we have a little bit of a longer landing, and we'll get off at Bravo 3. And then our call once we're off the runway would be Monette traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, clear of the active, taxiing on Bravo to runway 18, Monette. Taxi back up here to 18, and then we're going to call again. Monette traffic, Skyhawk 1289er, entering runway 18, departure to the south, Monette traffic. And so we'll reconfigure here real quick. We'll get rid of Neosho and add Fayetteville back in. Now, because Monette doesn't have a control tower, we're just announcing what we were doing. So we're going to take off, we're going to come up, we're going to let them know, Monad traffic, 128.9er, upwind, runway 18, departure to the south, Monad traffic. Once we're about 5 to 10 miles out, we're going to call Monad traffic, make our last call. Monad traffic, Skyhawk 128.9er, last call, clear of the area to the south, Monad traffic. At this point, we're just flying VFR along. Once we get about 20 nautical miles from XNA, we're going to switch back over to our approach frequency of 126.6, and we're going to pick up flight following in the air back to Drake, because again, we're going to be flying through that Class Charlie airspace on our 4,500 foot altitude. And so what that transmission sounds like is Razorback approach, Skyhawk 12189er, requesting flight following. We're going to tell them we're 20 nautical miles to the northeast of XNA, requesting flight following to Drake. And approach is going to say Skyhawk 12189er, squawk 5545 for this example. I didn't. And what that means is we are now going to enter 5545 into our transponder. We're going to read that back, Skyhawk 129er, 5545, I didn't. And we're going to enter that into our transponder and press the I didn't button. What that does is it lights up a little light on their computer screen, and that lets them know, hey, we're right here. The next transmission you're going to get is Skyhawk 129er, Razorback approach, radar contact 20 miles northeast of XNA, maintain VFR, proceed on course. That would just say, hey, we're just going to continue flying in our VFR configuration, and we're going to proceed straight into Drake. However, they might say 129er, 20 miles, radar contact 20 miles northeast of XNA, fly heading 170. They want us to open up a little bit more towards the left just to stay clear of their airspace. And so our transmission is going to be Razorback approach 129er, heading 170. And so whatever they want us to do, we'll comply. If we didn't hear their initial contact, radio contact, we might ask them to repeat it, or we might ask them to clarify. Again, we're a student pilot. We'll add that in the transmission as well. So student solo lets them know, hey, they're just going to take it a little easier on us, or they'll know this person might not be as versed on the radios, and we'll proceed inbound. An example we had on our last flight is as we entered over Springdale's airspace, what we can see is Springdale's airspace goes up to 3,900. Somewhere along here, we'll have to start our descent down into Fayetteville. They said 128.9er, maintain VFR at or above 4,500. That just means, hey, just stay at 4,500 or higher, but don't descend below. And we would just respond with Skyhawk 128.9er, maintain VFR at 4,500. And then eventually, at some point down here, they said, Skyhawk 128.9er, Razorback approach, VFR altitude, your discretion, contact Drake 128.0. And what that means is, hey, we are now clear to descend, and we can go ahead and contact Drake. So we would just respond with 128.9er, VFR altitude, our discretion, contact Drake Tower 128.0. At this point, again, being pre-active, we would already have 128.0 on the standby because we can anticipate that is the next person we're going to talk to. We'd reach out to Drake. While we're also coming in here, we have some time, so we'd be listening to the weather at Drake and getting the current weather information. Let's say now it is, now it's Tango for our example. So we would reach out to Drake Tower, Skyhawk 128.9er, 8 miles. We can kind of see where we're at, again, by using our 2 fingers on ForeFlight. Let's say we're right here. So we'll call that 8 miles to the north with information Tango at whatever our altitude is, requesting full stop taxi back. That lets them know, hey, we just want to land. Drake Tower would respond 128.9er. If their 16 is active, runway 16, straight in, advise a 3-mile final, letting us know, hey, once we're in a 3-mile final, we just need to hit up, reach out again, let them know we're in a 3-mile final. Or they might say 128.9er or 16 clear to land if nothing's going on, and then we're just good to come on in. And so then we're just going to respond 128.9er or 16 clear to land, or 128.9er or 16 3-mile final, or report a 3-mile final. And we come in, and at a 3-mile final, we'd call again, Drake Tower, Skyhawk 129, 3-mile final, runway 16. And at that point, they'd give us our landing clearance. However, if runway 34 is active, most likely what they're going to say, 129er, enter left downwind, runway 34, report midfield. letting us know, hey, once we're in the middle of, once we're between the two ends of the runway, we'd call tower and reverse report 129er, runway 34, midfield left downwind. And that's just a reminder for them. It's just putting a little bit of the responsibility on you as well, and it lets them kind of forget about you for a moment, and then if they haven't remembered you, then you would reach out, and they'd be like, 129er needs to land. So they would say 129er, runway 34, clear to land. Or they might say 129er, runway 34, number 2, follow the Cessna on a 1 mile final or a 3 mile final, or wherever that other traffic may be. Or they might say 129er, extend downwind, I'll call your base. And we would just respond with 129er, runway 34, you call my base, or 129er, proceed outbound, and number 2 behind the Cessna. And again, we're waiting for that landing clearance. Once we've got runway 34 clear to land, we would come in and land runway 34. And then once we're on the runway again, we would go ahead and call and say 129er, parking on the east side, or taxi back to the east side. And then you can say 129er, taxi Delta Echo Charlie to the east side, or if we're beyond that, they might say 129er, continue rollout, turn right on Charlie to the east side. And we would just respond 129er, Delta Echo Charlie to the east side, or continue rollout, right on Charlie to the east side, 129er. And that is a complete comms breakdown for this flight. Again, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out with your instructor or discuss it when briefing the flight. Thank you so much.